My husband's lottery ticket won 20 million. He bought first-class plane tickets and took me abroad to make up for our honeymoon. We climbed to heights to gaze into the distance, smiling as we watched the sunrise. At the moment we embraced, he pushed me off the cliff. At the moment of falling, I watched him hold the guide who was taking our picture by the waist and make a farewell gesture toward me. The guide took off his hat. I felt like I had seen that face somewhere near my home. The sensation of free fall ended the moment the pain struck. I shot upright, gasping for air. My right hand pressed hard against the left side of my chest, feeling my heart pounding as if about to burst through my skin. The man beside me was roused by my movements. He reached up and switched on the little bedside lamp. "What's the matter?" "Honey." Lucas in front of me squinted sleepily, misaligned buttons revealing his increasingly round beer belly. The instant he reached out his hand toward me, I remembered the scene from the dream. He had reached out his right hand just like that. I instinctively drew back, my heart pounding wildly, and with the movement a gnawing, ant-like ache crawled through every bone in my body. "Why do you look so pale?" Lucas asked with concern. He reached out and put an arm around my shoulders, pulling me so my whole body rested against his. But for some reason I still felt completely uneasy. "Could you go get me a glass of water?" I blurted, using the excuse to steer him away. Lucas didn't suspect anything. Thoughtfully he slipped a pillow behind my lower back before getting out of bed and heading toward the living room. I looked at his silhouette and couldn't help but wonder, could the man who cares for me like this really be the same person from my dreams? Lucas's phone on the bedside table lit up. I, who never snooped through phones, inexplicably picked his up. On the chat screen was a conversation between Lucas and someone whose avatar was a cartoon pig. "Lucas, want to go out for barbecue?" "Little piggy, don't you need to keep your wife company?" Lucas, she's already asleep. Little piggy, haha, only when the big wife is asleep do you have time for me. Am I your little wife? Lucas, you are my wife. My heart sank into an ice pit when I heard Lucas's voice. "Honey, want to add some honey?" "Sure." I tried to make my voice sound as normal as possible. As I said that, I opened Zayazuzu's post. The post showed the guide's face, and the hand stroking her side I recognized at a glance as Lucas's. Because there was a cut scar on the right index finger, left when he accidentally sliced himself the first time he cooked for me. So they really had been involved for a long time, perhaps. Maybe what just happened wasn't a dream at all, but heaven giving me a new chance. I watched Lucas's back outside the room, steadied my nerves and thought of a way to buy time. "I'm a little hungry, could you make me some noodles?" "Of course, little glutton, do you want an egg?" Lucas detoured into the kitchen and asked. "Yes, please, I want it a bit runny." I kept stalling while using Lucas's phone to record the screen. I recorded the chat history and everything that could prove the messages came from Lucas's account, and sent the recordings to myself. I deleted the chat history he had sent me and put Lucas's phone back where it belonged. The night was quiet, so quiet I could hear Lucas starting the stove and cooking noodles in the kitchen. I half leaned on the bed, watching his busy figure humming a little tune. In the dim light his silhouette looked especially warm, but to me all of it was nothing more than a hypocritical disguise. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to calm the turbulent waves inside, trying hard to recall everything I had experienced in the dream. As an only child raised in the city, I was immersed in the warmth of my family from a young age, and I always harbored unrealistic fantasies about love. Looking back, my meeting with Lucas now feels more like a trick of fate. At a work meeting, I stepped in as the client to smooth things over for Lucas, the contractor who was being scolded, and somehow that man latched onto me. Lucas had a refined, gentle exterior, every gesture and movement fit my tastes perfectly. To perfectly conceal himself, he performed excellently at work. He could tell what I wanted from just a look, and I quickly fell under the spell of our relationship. Winning a 20 million lottery, I believed with all my heart that fate was smiling on us. But Lucas turned that trip into a carefully orchestrated conspiracy. At the mountain's summit, the warmth and beauty of that moment now strike me as so ironic. I nestled against him full of hope, savoring this hard-won peace and dreaming of a bright future, when he suddenly braced himself and thrust me into an endless abyss. As I fell, the wind roared past. I widened my eyes, trying to claw back a shred of reason from the shock and terror. I watched Lucas spin around, seize the waist of the guide who had been taking our photos, his face lit with the smile of a victor, and make a cold farewell gesture toward me. The guide's face looked oddly familiar in the morning light, yet for a moment I couldn't place where I'd seen him before. I clenched my fist with one hand, my fingernails digging into my palm, but I refused to let go. In this life, I will never let them off. I rose quietly, slipped into the study, turned on the computer, logged into my email, saved the video and screenshots I had just recorded one by one, and set them to be sent on a timer to my lawyer friend Clara. I knew that at this moment, I had to seize the greatest possible initiative for myself. Back in the bedroom, Lucas had already come in carrying a steaming bowl of noodles, a satisfied smile lighting his face. "Honey, try it, see if you like it." I forced a faint smile, took the noodles, gently blew on them to cool them, and pretended to eat with relish. No matter how well I disguised it, Lucas still noticed something was off about me. "What's wrong, honey? Are you feeling unwell?" He turned, his eyes full of tenderness and concern. I shook my head, forcing my voice to sound light. "Just a dream, it was." I bit my lip, choosing my words. "Oh? What dream?" Lucas asked curiously as he sat down and pulled me into his arms, trying to offer more comfort. But his gesture only made me feel sick. "I dreamed we won the lottery jackpot. The numbers were as clear as if it really happened." I deliberately left a tease, watching his reaction. "Really? That's such a good dream." Lucas's eyes lit up instantly, as if he could already see that huge prize waving at him. "We won the lottery, what are you still worried about?" I wore a shy expression and said, "I dreamed we had a baby, and it was so rowdy and wouldn't listen." Lucas laughed and wrapped his arms around me from behind, his rough hand stroking my belly. "Wife wants a baby, then let your husband help you." His touch sent shivers through me, and I said, "We both have to work, who has time to look after a child?" "This is like hitting the jackpot, we'll have money soon," Lucas said, resting his chin on my shoulder. "Do you still remember the numbers? I'll go buy a ticket after work tomorrow, maybe the dream will come true." I scratched my head, pretended to lower my gaze and take a bite of noodles, and wriggled free from Lucas's arms. "I only remember roughly. I think it was 09, 12, 24. I dragged out my words on purpose, my eyes flickering as if I were really straining to recall the numbers from that dream. Lucas listened entranced, expectant light flickering in his eyes. He was eager to know more, as if these numbers could truly turn his fate. "Also, I remember a 29, yes, 29 is definitely right. The rest, it gets fuzzy when I wake up." I sighed softly, a note of regret in my voice, though secretly pleased. This answer kept the suspense while giving him no real clues. Lucas was clearly a bit disappointed. I knew he had the habit of buying lottery tickets, hoping to change his fortunes and wipe away the stigma of having married into the city's only daughter's family. After all, the polished image others saw of him now was something my family had bestowed. "Don't bring up the lottery. You've been in City A 5 years now, aren't you eligible to apply for talent housing yet?" Lucas nodded, "But we still can't apply for property now." I gave a light laugh. Lucas had been able to reach a middle management position at the company in no small part because of my family's support. I had never told him that, considering his pride. That was why he believed everything was down to his own ability, that his qualification for the talent housing was something he had earned himself. I smiled and said, "But we still have to think about the child. We can't have the child living with us after they get married, can we? Our incomes are stable now. We can really consider getting another place for the child," I coaxed. "You'd have a house in your name, and it'll give you more face in front of my parents." After so many years with Lucas, I knew exactly what he wanted to hear. I fanned the flames myself. "We can do a fake divorce to buy the house. If it's you who loses out or me who loses out, I'm not afraid." "What are you worried about?" The idea of a fake divorce to buy a house took root in Lucas's mind, And the next day I even found his online searches and his phone browser history. All the while my thoughts kept drifting back to Lucas and that guide's dream, and I missed my stop on the way home. Walking toward home, I unexpectedly found a newly opened lottery shop next to the supermarket 2 blocks from our place. This shop was a far cry from the lottery kiosks I remembered. Wooden doors bore several strings of vintage wind chimes that tinkled softly in the breeze, lending a touch of warmth and refinement. Inside, gentle light spilled into every corner. Besides charts of winning numbers on the walls, a few abstract paintings added an arty flair. In one corner of the counter, an espresso machine stood beside a tea set. Steam rose slowly, mingling the scents of coffee beans and fruit and flower teas, filling the whole space. The usual cigar-smoking lottery regulars seemed to tame their tempers here, heads bowed as they studied tickets, or leisurely savoring a sip of coffee, then joining the landlady in trading a few boastful comments and critiques. The landlady stood with her back to me, busy behind the bar. I watched her graceful figure and my heart missed a beat, an uneasy flutter rising within me. In the instant I was lost in thought, the landlady seemed to sense something and turned around. It was her. Lucas's lover was her. The guide who had watched me fall off the cliff. Our eyes met, and time seemed to freeze in that moment. I felt my breath catch, a bone-deep ache radiating out from my marrow. Welcome. Here to buy a lottery ticket? Or do you need something else? Chloe's voice was soft and coquettish, carrying the allure that captured men. Her smile remained enchanting, yet like a sharp blade it gently cut through the calm I had been forcing. The string of winning numbers in my phone's notes was swallowed by darkness the moment I turned the screen off. I took a deep breath, forcing my voice to sound steady. Why yeah, I'm just browsing. I averted my gaze from her, pretending to be interested in the lottery-winning trend chart on the wall, while turmoil churned inside me. If anyone's interested, I can give you a detailed introduction. Don't be fooled by Kaime's young age, she's really skilled, one of the men beside her fawned. And to have opened such a big shop at such a young age, that's impressive. Yeah, I'd like to try my luck, I'll buy a scratch-off, I said, pretending to browse but actually watching her reaction. She followed me over and stood beside me, saying, we have quite a variety of scratch-offs here, those ones have pretty high odds of winning. I pretended to ponder seriously for a moment, then pointed to a 50 yuan scratch-off ticket. How about this one? It looks kind of interesting. That one, huh, it's pretty good. A few big prizes have come out recently. She said with a smile, reaching under the counter and handing me one. Out of the corner of my eye I saw Chloe instinctively rub her lower belly, a gentle and complex emotion flickering across her face. Since my rebirth my luck's been pretty good. After scratching a few spots, I deliberately put on a surprised look. Wow, I think I hit a small prize. She leaned in to look and smiled. Really? Looks like you're lucky today. I took the chance to say, yeah, I feel pretty fortunate. But then again, I bought so many times and only won this once, your shop must bring me luck. Bit by bit Chloe and I grew closer. Sometimes I admired her so much. What kind of inner strength did it take to be so eager to become Lucas's wife's confidant, to become such close friends? Actually, I've always been very envious of you, Chloe suddenly said, breaking the silence. Envious of me? Envious of what? I chuckled lightly, my gaze dropping to the slight swell of her belly. Her eyes followed my line of sight and settled on her own stomach. Envious of you? You're the only child from a big city, with parents who dote on you, a stable life. I laughed nonchalantly. I'm the one who's envious of you. Your husband opened this shop for you, and you're almost ready to have a baby. Then I paused with a hint of regret. I've been married so long and there's been no sign of anything. My husband won't even cooperate and go to the hospital. Chloe cut me off. What's wrong with men? It's always a woman's womb that fails her. I couldn't help but sneer inwardly. Only someone capable of saying something so foolish would willingly debase herself to be another's mistress. Outwardly I still feigned a smile and linked my arm through Chloe's. Then I'll get closer to you and soak up some of your good luck, get my womb to cooperate sooner. My words carried a teasing tone, but also a barely perceptible sting of irony. At my remark, a flash of awkwardness crossed Chloe's face, but she quickly returned to smiling. You say that like it's that easy. She patted my belly lightly, her voice softening. But if you really want to come by the shop more, sit and chat, you're always welcome. Who knows, maybe some of my luck will rub off on you. It's getting annoying that I keep nagging you. Do you want to come over to my place? I've stewed some bird's nest today. My husband had a friend bring it back from Indonesia on purpose. He says it's good for my skin. You should come have some, it's good for the baby too. Chloe wanted to refuse a few more times, but deep down she was still curious about what Lucas's and my home looked like. Half resisting, half yielding, she closed the lottery shop door and followed me back. The house had been deliberately arranged by me, every detail betrayed a taste for life and the affection between husband and wife. On the entryway shoe cabinet sat intimate photos of Lucas and me, and beside them a large bouquet of exuberant roses. I exclaimed reproachfully, I forgot to ask if you're allergic to pollen. My husband just likes giving roses to do something romantic. He's already in his 30s or 40s and still acts like a callow youth. I mumbled under my breath, quickly moving the flowers elsewhere, and in the corner of my eye I noticed Chloe's fist clenched at her side. I took her hand and led her toward the dining table. You sit first, it's a bit chilly by the air vent here, I'll find you a blanket. I fetched the hand-knitted blanket that had been all the rage a while back from the guest room. It was sunny today, so my husband took the blankets to wash. This one is the one he knitted for me a while ago after watching a short video. It's ugly but usable, I said with a hint of apology, which to Chloe's ear sounded more like showing off our affection. A flicker of complex emotion passed through Chloe's eyes. She probably never imagined that Lucas and I could have such a harmonious, happy home. Every little detail whispered his love and care for me. After all, men will do anything for their appetite. If there had really been love, how could he have pushed me off a cliff after winning a 20 million lottery? I noticed the change in her, but didn't call it out directly. Here, taste this bird's nest. Your husband is busy on a business trip. The most important thing for you now is to take good care of yourself and the baby in your belly. Chloe hesitated for a moment. She picked up the spoon and gently stirred the bird's nest in the bowl. Her gaze drifted, perhaps settling on those little signs that represented Lucas's affection. So I deliberately slowed my pace eating the bird's nest, savoring it as I chatted with her. At last she set down the spoon and forced a smile. It's getting late. I should go. I glanced at the wall clock. The hands were moving toward 5:30. It was about the time Lucas would be home. Already leaving? I stood and urged her to stay. The sound of a key turning in the door came from outside, and I linked my arm with hers, teasing, it must be my husband returning. You're my good friend, he's my lover, it's the perfect chance for you two to meet. Well. There was a flicker of hope hidden in Chloe's flustered expression. Perhaps she, too, wanted to find out which woman truly mattered in Lucas's heart. The door opened slowly, and Lucas stood in the doorway, his face bewildered as he looked at the scene inside the room. Honey! Do you remember I asked you to buy cherries? I called out. He shifted awkwardly, holding the bag in his hand, his eyes darting away from Chloe. Of course I knew why, because in the chat logs Chloe had claimed she was craving cherries due to pregnancy and had asked Lucas to buy them, but Lucas had been stingy with his money and kept making excuses. I smiled as I took the bag from Lucas's hand, turned to Chloe and said, they're imported from New Zealand, top quality. Since you're pregnant you can eat some to help give the baby vitamins. I said, patting Lucas, what are you standing there for? Hurry up and set some aside for my good friend to take away. My words made Lucas even more awkward and uneasy. He hurriedly replied, why yeah, Chloe, you, take some to eat, it's good for the baby. As he spoke he clumsily separated some cherries from the bag and handed them to Chloe, his fingers trembled slightly, betraying the panic and unease inside him. No sooner had Chloe left than Lucas used the excuse of leaving some documents in the car to go downstairs. I suppose he was rushing off to appease his darling little piggy. I stood at the window, watching two figures walking toward the complex gate, pulling at each other. I took out my phone, snapped a picture, and sent it to my lawyer friend Clara. Honey, I specifically asked a well-connected colleague today about that trick of divorcing to buy a house. He said it's actually doable. Lucas brought it up as soon as he walked in. It was certainly because his little sweetheart had come by and sulked on the way home. Oh Lucas, do you really think everything you have now came from your own efforts? I sneered inwardly and teased him half-jokingly. I told you before you weren't willing. Today you saw Chloe's pregnant and want to trade up for a wife who can have kids. When I said that, Lucas's face flickered with embarrassment and unease. Oh, where did your mind go? I just thought there happens to be an opportunity for a talent housing unit, and isn't that for our child's sake? He reached out to hug me, and I pushed him away, pretending to be angry. Lucas continued to explain, I heard that by divorcing and then remarrying, we can use our house to mortgage a second time, so we can buy a more ideal place. This house is in my name now, you want me to mortgage it after a divorce? Are you trying to trap me? My tone carried reproach. We're doing a fake divorce, divorced on paper but not leaving the house. Whether there's love or a certificate doesn't matter. Lucas promised. If you're worried, I'll give you the car and the savings I have now. Lucas really had thought this through. I don't have a driver's license, so giving me a car is useless. As for the savings, there wasn't much. Most of Lucas's salary had been supporting his uncle in the countryside. On the surface it was called a loan, but in reality there was no way it would ever be paid back. In my previous life I was hopelessly love-struck and never realized that his actions were just a way to shift marital assets. I foolishly believed family members should help one another. Fine, then have your uncle return the money he borrowed from our family, I suggested. Lucas showed a pained expression. My uncle's short on cash right now. After my persistent coaxing, I obtained the 600,000 yuan IOU co-signed by Uncle Lou, and Lucas and I collected our divorce certificate from the Civil Affairs Office. A few days later, Lucas hurriedly left home claiming a business trip. The look of blooming flirtation on his face made it obvious he wasn't on a business trip. To test my suspicion, I quietly activated the monitoring app one had earlier installed on his phone. After the phone left our neighborhood, the location pinged and remained fixed at an apartment building beside a lottery shop. That was Chloe's residence. I turned off the tracking app, and at that moment the real estate agent's call came through. Miss Sophie, there's new progress on the property you were interested in. Would you like to schedule a time to go see it? That afternoon I met the real estate agent as arranged. After viewing several apartments, none had won me over, and just as I was about to end the house hunting, the agent received a call about an apartment for sale. I listened as the agent read out the address, Rainbow Apartments, Building 1, Unit 1209. It rang a bell. Suddenly I realized, isn't that the place Chloe rents? I asked casually, I'm considering apartments too, what's the situation with this one? The owner's going abroad and wants to sell the property. It's currently rented to a young couple, the woman's pregnant and they seem to be looking to move into a bigger place. Lucas and Chloe were now calling each other husband and wife outright. Heaven itself had helped me. That brief exchange with the real estate agent handed me the evidence of bigamy on a silver platter. The lottery numbers on the TV popped up one after another, 09, 12, 24, 29. That sequence of digits that would change my fate finally appeared. I clenched the ticket and checked the results on the official website. First prize winners, 1. My heart instantly raced, as if I could hear my blood roaring. Fate had truly shifted. This time it was me who won, not Lucas. I quietly put the ticket away, booked a train to the provincial capital the next day to claim the prize, and already had plans in mind. The claiming process was simpler than I'd imagined. After filling in the required information, over 16 million yuan appeared in my bank account. When I got on the return bus, Lucas actually called. His tone was a little excited. Honey, where did you go? Why did you change the lock at home? I pretended to be surprised. I accidentally broke the key off inside that day, so I just went ahead and got a new lock. You were busy on your business trip and I forgot to give you the key. Then hurry back, Mom is waiting for you at the door. I'm working late, I can't get back that quickly. My mother-in-law shouted hoarsely, "A woman who can't even have a child shouldn't be working overtime. A woman's most important job is to serve her man. Mom, say less." Lucas lowered his voice to soothe her. I answered casually, "I'm not coming back that soon. There's a product launch tomorrow, probably going to be very late. You should take them somewhere else to rest." "It's fine, we'll wait for you, consider it remote company while you work overtime," Lucas said very solicitously. I couldn't care less whether they waited for me, I only wanted to know what they were planning this time. Could they have found out about the lottery win? A bad feeling surged up in my chest, and I immediately contacted Clara and transferred the money into her account. If the Lucas family was so eager to put on a show, then let them wait at the door. I slept soundly at a 5-star hotel in the city and only went home after lunch. Half-eaten takeout boxes were scattered casually in the hallway, and a large bouquet of withered roses lay nearby. "Wife, you're finally back." If I hadn't been paying special attention, I wouldn't have noticed the flash of resentment in Lucas's eyes. He took the bag from my hand obediently as usual and said solicitously, "Wife, your shift is too hard. We already won first prize, let's skip this shift." "What lottery?" I pretended not to understand. "The sequence of numbers you dreamed about last time. I won third prize. The convenience store lottery seller at the corner said you were the winner. By the way, why didn't you buy it at Chloe's? If she and the owner hadn't known each other, I wouldn't even have known you'd won." So that's how it was. I feigned surprise, "The lottery I casually bought for my coworker last time, could that be it?" "What? You bought it for your coworker?" Lucas's expression instantly turned complicated. He opened his mouth as if to say something, but then fell silent. "What colleague bought it? If you paid for it, it's yours. You still want to give 20 million to someone else, are you out of your mind? All those years of schooling and it went straight to your ass?" My mother-in-law spat coarsely, forcefully demanding I hand the ticket back, threatening she would no longer acknowledge this daughter-in-law otherwise. It was as if being the daughter-in-law of the Liu family made me some kind of treasure. Still, I meekly promised I'd find a way to retrieve the ticket, wanting to see what other tricks they intended to pull, and how they would treat Chloe now that I had won. I had long anticipated this possibility and had prepared a fake ticket in advance. After I got the ticket back, Lucas became ungodly attentive and tricked it out of my hands. My mother-in-law was single-mindedly urging Lucas to quit his job and start a business so he could be a big boss and give her prestige back in the village. The two of them talked about how they'd squander the 20 million once it was in their hands, while the actual owner of the ticket, me, was simply pushed out of their minds. I had experienced a scene like this in my previous life too. If I hadn't accidentally overheard my mother-in-law bragging to Lucas's uncle about Lucas winning, I would have remained in the dark. I suppose the Lucas of my last life really didn't want me to know he'd won. The next morning when I woke up, my head felt foggy and my eyelids seemed glued shut, as if someone had smeared paste on them. I wanted to close them no matter what. I forced my eyes open, trying to dispel that inexplicable fatigue, but it was no use. I touched my forehead, there was no fever, yet the heaviness in my body had no apparent source. I felt as if an invisible weight pressed on me, making every movement a struggle. A cold dread filled me. I forced myself upright and, unsteady, staggered toward the dressing table. Of course, the flash of anger that rose through my muddled mind cleared it for a moment. Last night, before going to bed, I had watched Lucas carefully place that ticket, our ticket of hope, into this very drawer. Now the drawer of the dressing table was empty. I held my breath, trying to detect any unusual hint in the silent air. Then a faint, yet heart-stopping scent slipped into my nostrils, the smell of gas, subtle, but lethal enough. Realizing it, my legs went weak and I almost collapsed to my knees. But the instinct to survive drove me to use my last strength to stumble toward the window and fling it open. Fresh air flooded the room like a tide. I breathed greedily, as if I were a stranded fish finally released back into the sea. When I woke again, my eyes met pure white, and the sharp smell of disinfectant told me I was in a hospital. I sat up slowly. And 4 was still in my left hand, the medicine running through the needle into my veins sent cold prickles through me. On the recliner beside the bed, Lucas propped his forehead with his hand, his expression unreadable in that light. Hearing me stir, Lucas looked toward me, and there was unmistakable disappointment in his eyes. "Sweetheart, are you awake?" He gave me a weak, painfully forced smile, the lift at the corners of his mouth read pure insincerity. "Do you feel anything wrong with your body?" My lips were dry. I refused to speak another word to Lucas. He stood up, walked to the window, and lowered his voice. "Honey, it's Mom, she's not used to the city's gas stove. You know she's just a country woman, that's why there was a gas leak." At his words I could only sneer inwardly. There was clearly a gas alarm installed in the kitchen. If the stove wasn't turned off or a leak occurred, the detector would have warned us. And besides, at that time of day my mother-in-law always went to the neighborhood square to do her dance exercises. How convenient that it would just so happen to leak the moment she used the gas stove. This was nothing more than a lie Lucas had concocted to cover the truth. I rubbed my aching temples. When I woke up the lottery ticket was gone. "Did you tell anyone about winning? Was there someone else?" Lucas's eyes immediately grew evasive. He stammered, "I woke up this morning and was afraid I might lose it while tidying, so I put it somewhere else." "Somewhere else?" Still vague enough, could it be that he put it in Chloe's hands? At that moment, my friend Clara pushed the door open. She looked at Lucas with puzzlement and asked, "I just saw the ICU nurse frantically looking for someone. It sounded like your mother's condition is critical and they couldn't find any family. Why weren't you answering your phone?" Lucas glanced down at his phone. The screen did indeed show several missed calls. His expression changed, and he hurried out of the ward. Clara squeezed my hand. "Why don't you move in with me? You've almost finished gathering the evidence of Lucas's bigamy." I shook my head firmly. In my previous life, Lucas and Chloe drove me off a cliff. How could I possibly let them off so easily now? On the days Lucas called his business trip, I had already installed pinhole cameras in every corner of the house. On the surveillance footage, Lucas turned the gas valve and disabled the gas leak alarm. When I saw all of it with my own eyes, no waves rose in my heart. I only thought about how many years Lucas would get if it was determined to be premeditated murder. A new movement appeared on the surveillance feed. My mother-in-law had come back early. She usually went to dance in the square, and Lucas had deliberately timed it so that when she finished and returned home she would discover my body cold in the room. But he hadn't expected that today she would come home early because she had accidentally twisted her ankle. After my mother-in-law came in she went straight back to her room to rest, and since her guest room was closer to the kitchen she didn't notice the gas leak. In the days after my discharge, Clara and I recompiled the new evidence collected from the surveillance. Through Clara's connections we found a hacker who pulled the home's internet logs and discovered that Lucas had indeed searched online for information about people dying from gas leaks. I just never expected that I would survive such a close call. At the hospital, Lucas received the terrible news outside the intensive care unit. My mother-in-law, having inhaled an excessive amount of gas, could not be revived and had no signs of life. Lucas, afraid the police might discover anything unusual about his mother's death, hurriedly had her cremated and sent back to their hometown. A few days later, Chloe showed up with a hypocritical smile plastered on her face, brazenly coming to offer her condolences. Seeing her belly grow rounder by the day, all I could picture was Lucas. In my mind I was already calculating how few good days the scumbag couple had left. Lucas used taking out the trash as an excuse to go downstairs with Chloe. I was already standing on the balcony watching them cling to each other and stroll through the complex. I picked up my phone and dialed Hank's number. "They've arrived." A burly man with a tiger tattoo climbing down his forearm yanked Chloe by the arm. Chloe staggered a step, barely keeping her footing. Hank slapped Chloe hard across the face. "You're carrying my child and you still want to sneak around behind my back with other men." His roar was deafening. People passing by couldn't help but stop and watch. Hank grabbed Chloe by the hair as if to display her to everyone. "Let the neighbors see, this is my wife. I give her my whole month's wages. Her family didn't just come to the city to earn money, they came to sell themselves. and now her belly's full because someone got her pregnant. Let me explain. Chloe still managed to purr coquettishly, her voice pinched. Explain what, Hank roared. You're that big already, and you're still shameless and so loose. As he spoke, he yanked Lucas, who was about to run, by the collar. Is it this guy? He's the one you fancied? Just because he wears glasses he's a gentleman? Turns out he's doing things worse than animals. Hank sneered. My recent small talk practice with the neighborhood aunties had clearly paid off. Someone soon recognized Lucas as a countryside man trying to sponge off someone. The onlookers began to gossip, and those words fell into Lucas's ears. He immediately distanced himself. I just went downstairs to take out the trash, it has nothing to do with me. When Chloe heard that, her face went paper white. She looked at Lucas in disbelief. Her lips trembled as she stared at him. What do you mean it has nothing to do with me? The clothes you're wearing, even your underwear, I bought them. There's a scar on your butt, do you dare pull them down and look? What are you playing at pretending to be innocent? Lucas's face went from pale to sullen. He hurried to defend himself. You're just spouting lies. Don't think that because you and my wife are close and know some of my private affairs you can slander me like this. Wife. Chloe sneered and went on, you mean the wife whose lottery ticket you stole and then tried to kill. What are you talking nonsense about? Lucas's face darkened further at those words. He reached out and clawed toward Chloe's face. Chloe slipped behind Hank and took out her phone to record. Lucas's voice came through clearly on the device. Baby, once that stinking bitch is dead, we can take the 20 million and live a good life with our baby. Lucas reached for Chloe's phone. The two of them tore at each other like crazed beasts. None of the onlookers around them were willing to step forward and stop it. Seeing the situation had escalated enough, I dialed the police and then slowly went downstairs. I watched the two of them through tear-blurred eyes. Enough. One of you is my friend, the other is my husband. What on earth happened? A bystander auntie, unable to bear it, pulled me aside and added her own embellishments as she recounted how it all began. I put on a look of disbelief, my voice quivering with sobs. How is that possible? Lucas's sperm has problems, he couldn't possibly father a child. My words were like arrest. The two who had been tearing at each other suddenly fell silent. Lucas stared at Chloe's belly in disbelief. Impossible, how could I be the one with the problem? Chloe froze too. She looked at Lucas, a flicker of panic crossing her eyes. Really, I nodded. The tests we ran before, I didn't tell you because I was afraid it would upset you. You actually lied to me. Lucas clenched his fists, veins bulging, and pointed at Chloe's belly, speaking harshly. A man's pride made him cast aside his own infidelities. It was impossible to tell whether his anger at that moment stemmed from his masculine inadequacy or from genuine fury at Chloe's deception. Hank sneered coldly, you damn woman, you really are a slut, you're willing to sleep with a man like this? Lucas was provoked by Hank's not-fit remark, flew into a rage and drove a fist into Chloe's stomach. At that moment, the police arrived on the scene and quickly separated Lucas and Chloe. Chloe's dress had already been stained red with blood. She was rushed to the hospital. Due to the heavy bleeding, both the child and her uterus could not be saved, and she lost the chance to become a mother. Hank divorced her and took all the property she had earned in the city by selling her body. As for Lucas, I handed all the evidence I had collected over to the police. Lucas knew his crimes were exposed and, unwilling to let Chloe off easy, laid out in full the plan they had once devised together to poison someone with gas. Lucas accidentally killed his own mother, and his uncle, fearing that such a vicious man might drag him into trouble, found that no one was willing to write a letter of forgiveness. Yet Lucas's uncle still received the notice I had the court send demanding repayment. To keep his son's chance at the civil service exams, he sold Lucas's house in the countryside and gave me the 600,000 yuan owed. While Lucas waited for the day of his execution, I visited him once in prison. Behind the iron bars he begged desperately, wife, please save me. I'll tell you where the lottery ticket is, I've got 20 million. Lucas, we're divorced now, I said, smiling as I opened my mobile banking app and showed him the string of zeros in my account. Lucas shook his head, his voice pitched sharp. Impossible, I hid it so well, how did you find it? Are you talking about the lottery? I took the winning ticket from my bag. Lucas stared at it, incredulous, and I pulled several more identical winning tickets out of my bag. Lucas's voice went mad, impossible, impossible. I laughed softly, you fool, the ones I gave you are fake, there are as many as you want. I already cashed the real tickets long ago.